Good morning, Suncoast. God of the impossible, well, you know my name, you know my story, and no mountain could ever stop the plans you've made, and your heart is for me, and I believe in your name, well, miracles can happen. I believe in your name, well, miracles can happen. The blind will see, the sick will stand. Sing hallelujah with confidence. When we can love, well, your mercy waits. And sing hallelujah and live again. When the lies come from every side to say you're done, to say it's over, I remember the 1,000 times your love has won, and this is far from over. 'Cause I believe in your name, miracles can happen. I believe in your name, miracles can happen. The blind will see, and the sick will stand. Sing hallelujah with confidence. When we can love, will your mercy waits. And sing hallelujah and live again. And Jesus, Jesus, your love is breaking chains right now. Oh, Jesus, Jesus, there's hope found in your name right now. Can we lift that up? Oh, Jesus, Jesus, your love is breaking chains right now, and nothing can just like heaven. When you walk into the room, there's not a thing that's hidden. When every eye is on you, can't get enough of your presence. It's the perfect point of view. Isn't it just like heaven? Come a little closer.
Suncoast, it is our honor to be here with you all this morning. Everybody feeling good? Ready to go? So I've got some exciting news. We have Jen Hatmaker coming in September to our church. We're going to be hosting her. They're going to throw up the slide. So it's September 21st here, and a little bonus, because we are the host church, if you use the code Suncoast, you get $5 off of the ticket. So if you're interested in going to that, she's an amazing author and speaker. It's going to be a fun time. So there's all the information right there. And if you have any more questions, you can check in Grand Central. They'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. And we have Pastor Larry back in the house starting a new sermon series today. So we're going to sing a couple more songs and then we're going to get to it, all right? Is that good? All right.
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where
been strong and I've been broken within a moment. I've been faithful and I've been reckless at every bit. I've held everything together and watched it shatter. I've stood tall and I have crumbled in the same breath. I have wrestled and I have trembled towards surrender. Chased my heart adrift and drifted home again. Plundered blessing till I've been desperate to find redemption. And every time I turn around, Lord, you're still there. And I was found before I was lost. I was yours before I was not. With grace to spare for all my mistakes, and that part just wrecks me. No, I don't deserve this kind of love, but somehow this kind of love is who you are. It's a grace I can never add up to be somebody you so want, but somehow you love me as you find me. Oh my, my heart to think it glory needs my praises. But if this borrowed breath is yours, Lord, take it all. You are faithful and you are gracious, and I'm just grateful to think you don't need a single thing, but still you want my heart. And I was found before I was lost. I was yours before I was not. With grace to spare for all my mistakes, and that bar just wrecks. Oh, it wrecks me. And I know I don't deserve this kind of love, but somehow this kind of love is who you are. It's a grace I can never add up to be somebody you so want. Somehow you love me as you find me. You love me as you find me. Sing that out, come on. You love me as you find me. Oh, you love me as you find me.
so much. You may be seated.
So I've had a lot of people ask me, what is Suncoast in depth? So could you give me the elevator pitch of exactly what your class is?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, Suncoast in Depth is really just an opportunity for people to get together and discuss and ask questions around topics that may challenge old paradigms, but also inspire new growth. So you can get that on the podcast that we put out every week, or you can meet with us at noon after the second service and have an opportunity to talk.
Yeah, so people can come in, they can ask questions, whether it's
Absolutely.
something they heard on the podcast or something they heard in the sermon that they
Yes.
would like to elaborate on.
Exactly.
Man, that sounds awesome. I'm
It
so
is.
glad you're doing that.
Thanks.
Good morning. It's good to see you today. Where have you been? So those of you who are laughing realize that I've been gone. And those of you who haven't been laughing, where have you been? So fair enough. So it's good to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Larry Baucom, the lead pastor. And before we start, I want to say a very, very big thank you so much to the creative team and to Pastor Troy for a great job. Didn't he do great at the movies? I mean, great series. I was able to see those and great practical teachings, and I think he did a great job. So if you want to know some things happening about Suncoast, look at the information in your hands. You got a lot of paperwork there. But we'll talk about the Jen Hatmaker is going to be here in September. If you'd like to know more about Suncoast and about that, you can check that out. Another thing I want to remind you is that once in a while, we have something called a tour. What's a tour? It's where we try to get people to move from spectators to participants. A lot of people come to church for a long time and say, oh, I come here, I love it, but I just show up and I don't do anything because I don't know how. Well, the tour is something that we offer about once a month or so. You get on a big black van, you drive around the campus, there's video, and Susan leads it, and she tells you the history of Suncoast, where we are, what we're doing, all the things are going. You get to see the production area. It's like a TV studio upstairs where they 5 cameras and the switching and all the stuff, but you can go to the middle school area, you don't have to get out. Scary. You know, it's safer to go to Chicago, but sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But if you want to know more about Suncoast, the tour, you sign up. It's the 10th at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you just take that card in your hand, write your name, tour on it, and we will contact you about it just to remind you. You get a full breakfast and those kinds of things. That's an important thing we do. Yesterday I was back from the trip, and with the men's group, we changed the oil and serviced about 25 cars. That's a wonderful thing to do, so thank you so much for being a part of that. Also, we're giving away cars on a regular basis. That's important too. So let me start with a new series, Thought. This today is called Becoming More, because it's my challenge. I began to think about what can I do to help you, and what I really want for you is to become more of who you are. If we could help you become your best self. So these teachings are designed not to guilt you into anything or to try to change you, but to try to help your heart be open to the possibility of becoming the best person that you're created to be. 7 years ago, I saw my wife take care of her mother. And, for a long time, Becky's mother, this matriarch of the family, she's the one who took care of her family. If they had a cut or a scrape, she's the Band-Aid queen. She cooked fantastic meals, have big family events for, 50 people. She's very organized, tremendous caregiver. She's just a wonderful person. And as she hit about 90 years old, she began to slow down quite a bit, and she couldn't get out as much. And Becky would go every week, all the way from here to Northwest Braden, take her 45 minutes to an hour. She'd take her mom out to lunch once a week. But she said, the change in perspective. It used to be her mother that was doing all this stuff. Now she goes and picks up her mom. She has to help her, steady her, take her to the car, sit in the right car, get in the seat, go to the restaurant, and then help her out, help her in. It's just, the roles shift from her mom being the caregiver to Becky being the caregiver. But as we develop as human beings, not only does our role change often in life, but our perspective changes. At an early age, we need someone to take care of us, nurture us. But as we age, we become the one who needs less and the one who gives more. This series is about becoming more. It's teaching us about growth, development, challenge. It's teaching us how to help others grow, to help us move from the bleachers to the playing field, to help us move from the place of I need to be fed to where all of a sudden I'm feeding others. It's sort of like Christmas. You know, Christmas when you're a little kid, what are you gonna get for Christmas? Oh man, I got a bicycle, I got this, I got a football helmet, I got all the things that kids get, and they get so excited about it. Oh, what'd you get? All the things you list. As adults, when I meet you and greet you, I don't say, what do you get for Christmas? Because it's not important to us as adults. We love to see the eyes of kids open as we're the caregivers and we're the ones who give. When I go to Israel every year, that's one of the things I love is I get to be the parent, and everyone that comes on these trips, they're like kids at Christmas. Their eyes are open to things for the first time, and I get excited about seeing that happen for you, as you do about when your kids go to Christmas time. Today we're looking at a story of Israel. Israel in its early stages. Some of the early fathers, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jacob had 12 kids. The 11th kid was called Joseph. And I mean, Joseph, number 11, was mistreated by his brothers, sold off into slavery in Egypt. But at some point when the famine happened, his parents and his brothers came back and they discovered who he was. And he said, look, the famine is so tremendously bad. I'm the second most powerful man in this world. And come here, bring the family here. And they brought the whole family there, and they gave them the best land. It's called the land of Goshen, which is the prime real estate in Egypt. Now, here's where the story picks up. Now, I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to tell you. 400 years later, there was a new Pharaoh, and I love this text because a Pharaoh who knew not of Joseph. So 400 years later, Joseph's introduction of them to get them there was wonderful, but they stayed and stayed and stayed, and now a new Pharaoh comes in and says, forget about Joseph. Who are these people? They're so numerous. They're overrunning everything, and I'm so afraid of them. They're getting so numerous that maybe we need to put some restrictions on them, and to begin to force slavery on them. And the more they enforced it and said, let's decrease their numbers, the more their numbers grew. The king of Egypt went further. He said, look, we got to take care of some of these boys. So he brought the midwives in. He said, when the baby's born, if it's a boy, kill it. And if it's a girl, let it live. Because the girls are not threats, but the boys were. And the midwives, they couldn't do that. They said, there's just no way. And so finally they were called back in by Pharaoh. So what's the deal? I told you to kill all the baby boys. They're still being born. What's going on? And their response was, you know, those Hebrew women are so strong and so sturdy that by the time we get there, they give birth without even calling us. Great story. And they said, well, what else are you going to do? And the Pharaoh said, well, this is the next step. Every Hebrew boy that is born, the order is, you got to throw him into the Nile River, but let every girl live. That's pretty strong, isn't it? Kill all the boys, let all the girls survive. For me personally, I'm not for that. Are you? Every boy says, no. Some of the girls say, maybe. I understand how it goes, but here's what happened. There's a boy that was born out of the house of Levi, and his mother sort of obeyed. For the first 3 months, she hid him. Then she threw him in the Nile River, but she threw him in a basket covered with tar on the bottom so it wouldn't leak. It was like a little miniature boat, and put it in the reeds. So technically, she obeyed the Pharaoh, but the baby was alive. And one day, Pharaoh's daughter was down by the river, and they discovered this basket, and the baby was crying. And she was so upset about that, Pharaoh's daughter was. She said, look, I want to take care of this boy and let him be my son. Now, the person that was really sharp was Moses' older sister. She was supposed to watch after her brother. And she sees this going on, and she runs up to the Pharaoh's daughter and says, oh, you have this baby. Do you have anybody to take care of him? Do you have anybody to nurse him? She said, no, I can get a Hebrew woman for you to nurse him if you want. And she said, yeah, that'd be great. So she got her mother, Moses' mother, and Moses' mother got paid to nurse the baby. That sounds like a pretty good deal, doesn't it? I don't know any other woman's been paid to do that for their own kid. So she got paid to do that. And of course, I think there's a little bit of Jewish, business working there, pretty good with his sister. But anyways, every Hebrew this morning thrown into the river, every girl let her live. We found him, we took care of him. They present this baby to Pharaoh's daughter when he's a little bit older, and Moses becomes the Pharaoh's daughter's son who grows up in the palace. And she calls him Moses, which means, I have drawn him out of the water. So what does that got to do with us today? We're going to trace through this story of the Exodus over the next 8 weeks. Today's week 1. This is introduction, and the theme is becoming more. How do we become more? So let's look at it. In your notes today, there are 3 things I want to mention to you. The first one is this: transitions are opportunities for my life to grow. Despite the passing of a generation of leaders, life continues. Abraham's family, the Hebrews, continue to multiply despite the difficulty. The more the Hebrew people seemed to be oppressed, the more they grew. Every transition, every crisis, it seemed, create an opportunity for them to change. Transitions are times when we have the opportunity to become more when we're challenged to grow. So, a couple of hypothetical questions. How do you stop a passionate community from growing? You know, this has been attempted many times unsuccessfully. Pharaoh wanted to stop the Hebrews from growing. What do? You oppress them, and they still grow. During the time of Jesus, Rome was the controlling power, and they wanted to keep Judaism in check. Judaism continued to grow. In the early years of the Christian church had to go underground because Nero in the 1st century and Diocletian in the 4th century, they tried to exterminate Christianity. Unsuccessfully, it continued to grow. In the years of World War II, when Hitler was trying to get rid of the whole Jewish nation, and I mean, they took a big hit. 6 million were killed, but they've responded in 1948 to have their own nation. I mean, in China, Christianity was banned by the communist nation, and Christianity went underground, and it prospered greatly. So here's the question: how do you stop a passionate community from growing? And it's not by oppression. You know what the answer I think is? If you want to stop a passionate community from growing, you have to figure out how to remove the passion. Last year, the studies say, and Pew Research and others, in our country, 8,000 churches in the United States closed their door. Did you know that? That's a lot. We don't hear much about that because people say, well, this is the way it is. But I would suggest if 8,000 banks closed last year, do you think you'd hear about it? You hear about it if one big bank closes. What about 8,000 hospitals were to close? That'd be a major crisis. You'd hear about it. It would be news. People would be concerned, why? It's not, but why is it happening to the church? It's not pressure or oppression from the outside. I think it's because somehow we've lost the passion. We've become a people of rules. There's no passion really very much in rules. We become a church system that's oppressive or obsolete. When integrity takes a back seat, when values are lost in bureaucracy, when we lose our sense of challenge, or when we settle for the status quo, we just want to get by. We quit growing, we settle, and we lose our passion. Today I want to talk to you about how do we reverse that trend. This series, Becoming More, I think is lighting the fire of something that puts the passion back in us. How do we do that? Well, I think we'll find out as we go through. But internal spiritual growth, becoming more, often occurs when there's some kind of crisis or transition. When we are changing, we have the possibility of growing. A good example of that is muscles. You know, muscles when they're worked out, you start ripping the muscles, and then they say when the muscle builds back, it grows bigger and grows bigger. And you go to the fitness centers in January, everybody makes a New Year's resolution, we're going to get fit, and the places are full, and now there's nobody there. But I don't do that myself because I just don't want to embarrass Troy. It just would be not fair to him. So I'm just trying to be nice about that whole thing. But it is amazing that when we're stretched, when we're pushed, when we're uncomfortable, sometimes there's some passion that kicks in. We need to figure out how to put the passion back into our lives, which leads to number 2. Personal growth often comes from perplexing situations and circumstances. You say, what do you mean? Well, sometimes life could be too easy. Verse 8, it says, a new king who did not know about Joseph came into power in Egypt. The goal of the Pharaoh was to control the Israelites, keep them from being a threat to his kingdom. The result of the nation being forced, difficulties, oppressed, slavery, life became more difficult. And when Joseph invited his family who were suffering from the famine, they moved to this land of paradise. It was great land. Things were good. But over the centuries, life changed. What was prosperity became slavery. What did the Hebrews do when they were hurting, when they were abused, when they were oppressed? Here's the answer. They cried out to God. Someone help us, save us. Have you ever cried out to God for help? Have you ever gotten in trouble to where you go, I just need help? If you have not, you're the only one. I mean, sometimes physically you feel bad and you go, I just need help. Or maybe financially a crisis, I just need help. Or just in relationships, I need help. I'd love to tell a story about a young guy 12 years ago, came on this campus. I got a call from someone on staff that a white pickup truck was turned over in the field out on this side, about where the soccer fields were. Now, what's a white pickup truck doing out there? I don't know. Why is it turned over? I don't know. So I drove out there to see what was going on. I went out in the field, and immediately I saw the grass is all torn up where donuts had been happening. You know what donuts are, right? Get in the car, spin around, you do all these donuts, and right in the middle of the field, there's a white pickup truck that flipped over on its side. So I get out of the car, and I walk up, and there's a 16-year-old kid sitting in there. He can't run and hide because his truck's there. So, and he was very nervous. He was panicky, and I didn't help him. You know, I went up and said, pause. You know, a pause makes people very nervous. You ever notice that? I mean, pause. What do we have here? He's not saying anything, but he's nervous. I said, you know, I probably should call the police for your trespassing and all the damage you've done here in the grass. He said, yes, sir. I said, but I was a teenage boy once. I was more than a teenage boy. I had 20 traffic tickets by the time I was 20. So was I a saint? Never have been, never will be. Was I a terrible driver? Not that bad, but when you grew up in St. Petersburg with a muscle car, St. Petersburg then they had one cop for every resident. I got pulled over for doing 31 miles an hour in a 30. Of course, I was long-haired, Camaro, tires that wide, and they chirped a lot when you drove. Every time you shift gears. And that's a different story. But I was a teenage boy once, and I always wanted somebody, one of those police officers, to give me a break. I don't think he ever did. But I looked at this kid, and I thought, oh, I was a teenager once. I wonder, I'll tell you what, here's the deal. If you promise never to come back here and do this, I'll help you turn your truck over and let you go. What do you think? He said, I promise. I said, okay. Called some staff. They came out, turned his truck over, and he drove off. End of story. But this week, on Thursday or Friday, Stacy, my daughter, her air conditioning went out in her home, and the AC guy was on his way, and she couldn't be there, so I went over to see the air conditioning guy in there. It was Thursday. And I see this guy, and he's fixing a fuse, and they're working on it, and he goes, you're the pastor of the church, right? I said, yeah. He said, do you remember me? I said, no. He said, I'm the teenager that flipped the truck over in your field about 12 or 15 years ago. I said, really? I said, I'm curious, what do you remember? He said, well, I was joyriding, doing donuts, and then all of a sudden flipped the truck over. And when you came out, I was sure you were going to call the police. I was going to be arrested. And then you said, I'm going to give you a break if I promise never to do it again. I promised. I learned my lesson. He said, I want you to know, you gave me a break, and I learned my lesson. I never did those stupid things like that again. I wonder how many lessons we learn from a crisis when something happens. I wonder how many times we don't do the right thing. See, I love the pause, and I love people to think about it, and I'm okay with a little bit of guilt. But I don't like to threaten people, do you? I don't like ultimatums. I don't like to give ultimatums. I don't like to threaten with fear or punishment. I find for me, in my spiritual growth, when someone says, oh, you're a sinner, you're going to go to hell, it never motivated me to do what I need to do out of the right intent. I've been scared to act a lot of different ways. But when I respond to the love of God, that God loves me today, and his presence is in you, and what he wants for you is not something from you, he has something for you to be the best person that you can be. You say, well, how does that work? You just need to look in because he's there. He's the spark of life. He's every breath that you breathe. He's the blood that pulses through. He is that which makes you alive. He is life itself. Boy, how my life changed when I learned that. I don't live from guilt or bondage. The motivation, the passion that's in my life is from the love of God who lives in me and loves me. Life lessons are learned often in crisis moments. Remember 2008? Man, things financially were rough. How do we deal with those negative things? What do we do when we're careless and we turn things over? What happens when we lose our job or maybe our marriage breaks up? What do we do when we hear the word cancer? I went to a funeral yesterday for a 41-year-old family member who died of cancer. What do we do when a loved one passes away, the crisis? What do we do when we find ourselves lonely, depressed, looking for more? Here's my suggestion. Of everything I say today, most important thing, find a place and quiet your heart. When I get stressed, I back up. I find a place, say, God, I know you're in me. And help my perspective to change because this is just a hiccup or a pothole. This has not defined me and it does not define you. But I find a quiet place, quiet my heart, and allow my heart to slow down, look within, and I find him. In every perplexing situation, there's the possibility of growth and becoming more. I've told this story, but it bears repeating. In 2016, 7.5 years ago, I just came off of an Israel trip. I was in Egypt, and I got a call from my brother Philip to tell me about our brother Jimmy. My brother Jimmy had leukemia and cancer. If you've been around here a long time, he actually came here and thanked you for your prayers at one point. But Philip called to tell me that Jimmy had passed away. Jimmy's my closest brother. I talked to him every day for about 10 years. I knew he wasn't well. I hoped he would last longer. My heart was hurting for me, but it also was hurting for my mom. You know, no mother should see her kids pass away. It's not the natural course of events. So Becky and I flew from Egypt straight to Nashville, changed our flights, and I was there to officiate my brother's funeral because he and I had talked about it many times. You're going to do my funeral, right? Yes. And you're going to do it the way you think is right? Right. And I did his funeral. But when I flew into Nashville, what I did not know and found out was my 3 adult children, Laura, Stacy, and Ryan, had gotten a van, and they said, we'll pick you up at the airport. They drove all the way to Nashville from Sarasota. They met us jet-lagged in the airport in Nashville, and they picked us up, and they took us to the hotel, and they drove. I didn't have to drive, and they supported me during my loss. No advice, no grief counseling, just being there for me, and brought me strength and comfort. You know, it was kind of a transition. Because I'm the caregiver. I'm the old guy. I'm the dad. I'm the patriarch. But my kids came in when I needed it, and they provided love and care for me. Their caregiver. It's one of my favorite memories in life. But you know what it came out of? Heartache, transition, and crisis. And I'm grateful for that. It taught me the value of family. And I will tell you today, the value of family has changed my life. So let me get a little broader. The value of family/community defines who we are. If there's something that I could put within you as a passion to be a part of a community that loves and cares for each other. At Suncoast, my community, you guys are my family as well. Do you know that when I came back, I've been gone for 25 days. I didn't speak for 5 weeks. And you know, I've been verbally taunted and abused by you since I got back. You know why? Because that's what brothers and sisters do. That's what family members do. We tease each other. And the thing is, I'm okay with it because what goes around comes around. And I'm just writing your names down, every one of you. One guy said, I'm not going to say anything. I said, well, you're the only one. And but here's the thing, community. See, what I think happens when we discover community, There's love, there's support, there's encouragement, and that's what the church of God is supposed to be. And when we become a group of rules and regulations, do this, don't do that, guilt, fear, punishment, instead we become part of, hey, we can all help each other. Do you know that yesterday we serviced 25 cars? You say, well, that was just, no, it was all of you, because we're all part of a community. Every good thing we do, you have a part in it. So we've given away more cars this year than we've ever given away before. Why? Because of you. You're making a difference. So, Pastor, what should we do? Keep doing what you're doing. Keep loving one another. Be open to God to work in your life. And if something begins to stress you too heavily, take a moment and back off. And breathe in and breathe out and smile. Or say a few, the Lord is my shepherd, or God is always with me. Which leads me to the last thought, and it's this. True leaders show us how to grow. True leaders model for us how to grow. True leaders have been wounded in life, but have not allowed the tragedies of life to drown them or define them. Malcolm Gladwell, in the bestseller David and Goliath, describes leaders and how they succeed in a world of systems designed for defeat. He makes the case that conventional methods do not work. If they did, they wouldn't forever work. The methods need to continually be changing. And here's the story. David was a shepherd boy in the Old Testament. And he was a boy who went to see his brothers who were fighting on the front. When he got there, he saw all these people cowered and afraid because Goliath was a giant 9 feet tall and was shouting out, hey, any of you guys man enough to fight me? Come on, just one guy will settle it all. One fight, one man, and this will be over. David heard enough of it. He said, look, I'll fight him. And everybody just looked around like, well, you're nuts. You're just not even you're 18 years old, whatever. You don't know what you're talking about. He said, I'll fight him. Okay, if you're going to, we're coming in. We need to outfit you with armor. They tried to put this big, heavy armor on him. He said, no, I don't want this armor. It's bulky. It's cumbersome. It's not going to work for me. David did not want to go toe-to-toe, armor versus armor with a 9-foot giant. At some point in the story, Goliath says, come here and stand before me and fight like a man. Fight like those I have killed before. Some scholars think that Goliath, a guy this big, probably had some issues with his eyesight. And David ignored the conventional warfare. He ignored the gift of armor. He chose agility and speed over brute strength. He used unconventional methods to overcome the situation. He won the contest and defeated the giant. And Gladwell makes this point. Conventional methodology will not work further. What is he saying? You can't use the same thing you always use to do it the way you've done it. Unfortunately, the church gets in a box where this is the way we've always done it, and what we need is what we've always done, and that's not true. Things change, let them change. If we fight giants toe-to-toe, we'll end in defeat. Maybe if what we're doing is not working, we should change the way we approach things. So when the Hebrews need a leader, here comes Moses, born as a Hebrew, yet not a true Hebrew because he was raised in Pharaoh's house. He was not the leader they expected. It was not the method they expected. I wonder how many leaders have to fight the expectations of their own tribe. You know, I remember at one point in my life, I traveled to Tallahassee when I left ministry for a while. And I didn't know what I was doing. My heart was broken. I was struggling 25 years ago. And my wife stood beside me. And I tell this story and brag on her. And she said, this is a season I'm going to be with you. And she said, the Lord just said, refuel and refresh was her motto. But she stood by me, no criticism, no, what the heck are you doing? I can't believe this. It was always, I'm here for you. And I tell women this, or ladies this, or any spouse this. When you don't have to fight a war at home, you can do greater things on the outside. But if you're fighting a battle on two fronts, it's divisive and it's difficult. You can never win out there if you're fighting in here all the time. And I didn't have to fight that battle. I was so grateful that she was there to stand by me. And I wonder how many leaders have to fight the expectations of their own tribe. And they just refuse to change. How can we address the issue of churches dying when we don't know and often don't care? Becoming More is a teaching about how do we grow when things don't go my way? Or what are the things that are going to help me grow to be a better person? Well, that's the challenge today. And now I want to pray with you and tell you a story. But Father, thank you for your love and grace. Thank you for opening our eyes to what could be. In a moment like this, remind us, it's about the presence of God within that pulls us into community to where we become greater together than we could ever be by ourselves. Open our hearts to more of the Spirit of Christ. May we be at our best today. And may you fill us with all the joy there is in knowing you, we pray. In Christ's name, amen. Would you stand? I want to tell you a story in closing, please. And it's a story about my grandkids. You know, I love to tell grandkids stories. Well, you heard my granddaughter sang a few weeks ago? Whew, that was great. And I got in, I only could watch that few minutes because the internet was bad and I had something else to do. But I got to watch those grandkids. Becky and I are across the world, big tears, you know, we get all teary because of that, but we loved it. This is about the other grandkids. This is back a few years ago when Colin was 10. Peyton was about 8 and Brady was 5. And their parents were gone, and when they're gone, grandparents step up. We get to keep the kids for a few days, and we're keeping the kids. But when you're at my house and your parents are gone, I'm the boss. That's the way it is. And one evening, it was time to start homework, and I'm trying to get the kids to do their homework, do this stuff. And I told Peyton, who's 8 years old, okay, sweetie, you need to get off the couch and get your work out. She didn't move. She just ignored me. She said, that's what I said a second time, Peyton, you need to get up and get your work out and start working on it. And she moaned, but did not move. At that point, I was tired and annoyed, but before I let myself go to the next level, I began to give her the talk. Here's the talk. Too many parents give their kids too many warnings. I simply believe in first-time obedience. I end with the word now. I want you to do this now. If you don't do it now, I'm not going to count to 3. I'm not going to count to 5. I'm not going to tell you 100 times. And now, and then after that, there'll be a consequence. That's the way I taught that in parenting. I believe it. I taught it with my kids now. My grandkids didn't know that. She didn't know it. I said, you need to do this now. And I said, if you do not do it when I tell you now, there'll be a consequence. So I looked at her. I said, Peyton, I need for you to get up and do your homework now. She jumped off the couch, wouldn't do her homework. The 10-year-old Colin, 10 years old, he jumps up too, and he says, Pop, that's amazing. Now I know why you're the pastor of the church. You give such good lectures. I thought, this is not about a lecture. This is about, I'm tired, get your homework done. I don't want the vein to come out on my head right here or my eyes to explode before you do something. But spiritual formation does not occur because you hear a lecture. It occurs when you and I come in contact with this sense of awe that God is in me. And I'm part of a community that believes the same thing. And when I hear him whisper, or you sense the Spirit of God getting you to do something, act in first-time obedience. Go with it. And when you do, you'll be glad you did, and he'll smile. I'm just here to remind you, God loves you today, and so do I. God bless. Thanks for coming.